Hello everyone, welcome to the Lowland Greenhouse here at Carlton Carnivores. I'd like to say thank you for joining us for World Carnivorous Plant Day here, and especially for joining us for the 5th annual World Carnivorous Plant Day being celebrated by the International Carnivorous Plant Society. We're doing a little bit of a theme on that with fives, and the video I've got for you guys today is a suggestion on 5 different plants that make for great beginner carnivores for people to work with. So if you're really unfamiliar with carnivorous plants, you're looking for something that's just to start out with, something that's relatively easy to take care of, that's not likely to just die on you like some of our more sensitive species might. These are a few suggestions that I have, and this is a selection across a few different groups of carnivorous plants, so something that might fit the tastes of just about anybody out there. Now, the first one that I've got for you guys is from a group of carnivores that is extremely diverse and ranges from some of the absolute easiest, weediest plants to grow to really special, delicate highland plants. And this is the bladderworts. These guys are famous for their flowers. And in fact, most people grow them just because of those flowers, because that's when they truly turn out flashy. The species that I've got for you guys here is Utricularia livida. Now I will show a close-up of the flowers because again that's what these guys are famous for. This is the Mexican variety, which is tends to have larger, slightly darker flowers than the African forms do. I'm not entirely sure why, but this variety and other livida varieties they are some of the easiest plants to take care of. Bladderworts, they grow as this mat of plants across the soil, at least the terrestrial species do, with tiny little leaves that are spreading out all over the soil surface, and then once they have colonized most of the pot, usually that's when you'll start to see them put up these blooms. And a very healthy, happy colony, once it's going, it may send up dozens of flower stalks all at once. You may have dozens up to hundreds of blooms all at the same time. As long as you put it into your standard carnivorous plant soil, so that's roughly a 50 to 50 peat moss, perlite, or sand mix, and keep that soil nice and moist. These guys will do really well for you. They don't need the strongest light like some other carnivores, like American pitcher plants or a lot of sundews do. They don't need full sun. Like most carnivores, they still need fairly bright light, so underneath a good LED fixture or on a nice sunny south-facing windowsill, at least if you're in the northern hemisphere. Reverse that if you're in the southern. But moderate sunlight, lots of moisture. This is a plant that you can flood and then forget about for a couple days and it'll do just fine. And because they grow low to the soil, they're not really picky about humidity either. So a great plant that's really hard to kill. Related to those guys, but slightly larger perhaps and a little bit more eye-catching, are the butterworts. They come in a few different varieties. You have the southeast temperate species, the true northern temperates, Mexican tropical species, and out of this genus, the Mexican tropicals are usually considered some of the easiest to grow because they will do well in very mineral soils and like moderate light, and tend to not require huge changes in conditions year-round. Most species, they do have a dry winter phase that they go through, but this species that I've chosen is one that you can just keep moist all year round in the same position, so it doesn't need any changes in its conditions either, and that is Pinguicula e marginata. Now, this is a relatively small butterwort. They don't get much bigger than this, about maybe 2 inches across or so. They grow in, you can actually grow these in almost the same kind of soil that the bladderworts will be, maybe a little bit more perlite or clay in that mix so that it's a little bit more mineral, a little more open, but these guys will sit in very wet soils just fine. They'll keep their carnivorous leaves all year round, and in bright enough light, those leaves will also form nice red edges and red in the center. And of course, much like the bladderworts, these guys are known for their flowers. Now, this species produces pretty small but extremely elaborate looking flowers. It's got intricate veins, lots of serrations, crenellations along the edges of the petals, so it's very flashy, and it's a great species. Once it grows in big colonies, each plant might produce 3 or 4 flowers at a time, so you may have dozens of blooms in a decent colony pot. And as you can see, again, these guys are fairly small. This is a small pot, so you can fit a dozen or so in a 4-inch pot, and so you can have dozens of flowers all packed in there. Beautiful species, very easy to grow, and a great butterwort to start with. Now, if you're looking for a different kind of carnivore, maybe where the leaves are a lot more the attraction, you may want to work with sundews. Another sticky plant just like the bladderworts, but these guys, unlike the bladderworts, their leaves will move. So in that way, they provide a little more attraction. And usually, as seen with this one on the side here, once they're in proper lighting, this is a group of plants that usually requires full sun or a similar equivalent, so a very bright LED fixture indoors might work. But this species in particular is very adaptable, very variable, easy to grow, and that is Drosser spatulata, the spoonleaf sundew. This is the Gold Coast Queensland form. These guys produce very elongate, very thin strap-shaped leaves. They taper a little bit, but this species comes in a lot of different variations. So if you like the bigger forms like this, or say like Tamlin, which has even broader leaves and get up to 4 inches across, or if you want a smaller variety, like say the Victoria or Sydney varieties, versions that come from Japan and China, they may only get 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches across, very tiny little fat-leaved rosettes. Or there are some very strange varieties from New Zealand. Those are a little bit harder to grow, mind, but the varieties from Australia, from Indonesia, or China and Japan are usually very, very easy plants to grow. They need, again, the same kind of soil, 50-50 peat moss and either perlite or sand, kept very moist. Again, this is a species that usually it will tolerate. You can flood it for a day or two and it'll be just fine. Let that dry out. Or as long as the soil doesn't dry out completely, they can go to just barely damp. So if you forget to water them for a couple days, they'll be just fine. And so as long as you keep them moist and keep them in very bright light, they're very easy to grow. They don't need a lot of humidity once they're acclimated. This is a perfect windowsill plant. And once they're happy, they'll start sending up flower stalks. This species, depending on the form, you may get white or pink flowers. They're not very big, but they can be quite beautiful. Varieties like Gympaensis have really big flowers on hairy flower stalks, so there's a little bit of variation there too. So lots of varieties for you to choose from. Now, you can also try, and this is number 4 for today, is if you don't want a standard species like that, you want something a little more exotic, but you don't quite have the right conditions to grow maybe the really specialized or highland species, go for a sundew hybrid. This is Drosser spatulata cross Neocalodonica. Now, Neocalodonica is a very hard species to grow generally. It's very picky about its conditions. It stalls and stops growth fairly readily if you do anything to change things around it. But you can get a lot of the same traits of that species in hybrids with it. So the spiky, hairy-looking leaves, very bright red tentacles around the edges with the green in the middle, big, in this case, pink flowers because the hybrid that I produced, the spatulata, had pink flowers, and that carries over. But it gets much larger, bigger flowers like Neocalodonica does, but it's got the ease of growth of spatulata. So sundew hybrids of all kinds are very great, especially if they involve spatulata or often Tokyensis, Natalensis. So hybrids are another great beginner option. If you don't want to work with the easy common species, want a little different, look for a hybrid. Now, if you're the kind of person who, like me, likes a lot bigger, flashier things, maybe you want to grow something like the tropical pitcher plants, like I've got Ampullaria here. Now, something like that gets really big and requires a little more humidity to do well, so it may be hard for somebody who's just starting out to justify putting something that big in their collection or in their windowsill or such. But there are some varieties out there that are a bit smaller, a bit easier to grow, and perhaps the easiest to grow of all is Nepenthes ventrada. Now, this common plant is a cross between Nepenthes gracilliflora and ventricosa, ventricosa being another very easy pure species, but this may be the most bomb-proof Nepenthes pitcher plant out here. This is just a young one. This is a rooted cutting that I'm working with, but these pitchers will eventually get to potentially 6-8 inches tall, and it's a relatively compact, slow-growing vine as far as Nepenthes go. So over a couple of years, it might only grow maybe 2 feet in length. And you can also fairly easily cut it back so that it's shorter, produces more side growth points, and you have more of a bushy plant if that's what you like. But these guys, this variety especially, tolerates a very wide range of lighting conditions, from a moderately shady windowsill to almost full sun, as long as you acclimate it right. And it's pretty not picky about humidity as well. So while a lot of other tropical pitchers, they really need high humidity, like 60, 70, 80% to pitcher well, this guy, if you acclimate it well, it will pitcher. Like in my household humidity here in Colorado, things might drop down to 10, 15% humidity at times, or even drier in some places, like if you're in Arizona or such. Now, inside the house might be a little better, but this guy, as long as you can acclimate it to that and it's got enough light, it will still tolerate those lower humidity conditions and do quite well. So this is one suggestion that I have for a tropical pitcher plant that is really great, really easy to grow. It's not temperature picky either, like some other pitcher plants may be. It'll grow in very warm or very cool conditions. It doesn't care as long as you're giving it just enough light and keeping the soil moist. Kind of a one-to-one long fiber sphagnum and perlite or orchid bark or pumice mix. If it's very loose, you have to water a little more. If it's dense in sphagnum, you may want to only water it maybe once a week. So it's relatively generalistic there as well. There are a lot of other options that you can also work with for tropical pitchers, but just starting out, this would be my first suggestion. So those are my 5 suggestions for you guys: Utricularia livida, Pinguiculia marginata, Drosser spatulata, Drosera hybrids, and Nepenthes ventrata. Now, of course, there are many other options that you could consider if you're even if you're just starting out, or if you are starting to be a little more proficient, you want to try something else. Lots of options among carnivores to work with, but that's a starter for you guys. Now, I hope you guys will check out other videos that the ICPS will be posting for World Carnivorous Plant Day. And if you'd like to learn more about what I do here as well, you can also find me at Carlton Carnivores. But until next time, happy World Carnivorous Plant Day. I'm Hawk and Carlton, and this is Carlton Carnivores.